Hey, everybody, and welcome to 320 Life. I'm so excited that you are here today. We have a treat today, an amazing story and testimony of my good friend Nikki. She has gone through it and came out on the other side. Basically, her story is just a story of healing and redemption and just how good God is as you press through and believe in your life. So I wanted to share that with you today. And if you know her, you know the story, it's awesome. I want to encourage you. God does these amazing things, not for us to keep them to ourselves, but to share this video, share this testimony with everybody that you know, to encourage them to believe, because God is still in the business of doing miracles all the time. But we have to believe, right? We have to believe. So I want to encourage you to like and subscribe to this channel, and then also share this with your friends. And I also want to encourage you to check in the notes below. I've got a faith resource guide with all these scriptures that will help you build your faith. I also have a link to a toolkit that that you can purchase that will help you, like it has meditations and all kinds of things that will help you overcome in your life, that will help you rise to the next level of your faith, that will help you change your thinking so that you can believe. It's really a great product. So I hope and encourage you to go check that out as well. And then go to our website, 320life, my320life.com. It's my320life.com, and go over there and check out the website. I also have a free resource there, for you to download as well. Hope that you are super encouraged by Nikki and this amazing testimony of God's goodness. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the 320 Life podcast, if you will. This is Alicia Sharp, as you know. Hope you're having an amazing day today. God is good. I have something very special today, a great awesome story that you're going to be blown away actually by listening to. My friend Nikki here, who I've known for, many years, at least 15 years or so. We've got her here, and she's going to share our story. So we're going to have an interview, and she's going to share her awesome faith testimony of healing and of just what God's done in her life. So I just want you to be encouraged and uplifted. So let's just go ahead and get started. So why don't you, Nikki, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you come from, and then we can dive into your story after that.
Sure. Well, obviously, my name is Nikki, and I am married, newly married, actually. I have a son who's 23. I work full-time for the state. I am actively involved in church, worship team, play guitar, sing, and am learning to do things that I have not done my whole life, like ride motorcycles and drive tractors and enjoying things like that. So yeah, it's a great life right now.
That sounds great. I know, knowing you from before, it's a lot different, like from where I knew you from, when I first met you to right now. Like you're like pretty much a different person.
Absolutely.
So why don't we dive right into your story? So can you tell me a little bit about your life before, I guess, your diagnosis with, what was it that you had?
Multiple system atrophy.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I was a busy working mom. My son was actively involved in, he did Taekwondo, and he did competitions with that. He played travel soccer. We were constantly on the go, and I work full time. I worked in a veterinary hospital, and I worked a lot of hours. I did a lot of physical work. I, wrestled big dogs and fought with fractious cats, and was kind of always on the go. Doing things around the house, and all of that kind of came to almost like a screeching halt
Right.
with the onset of symptoms, and my life changed and had to change.
Right. So what were kind of some of the first symptoms that you noticed with this disease?
First thing I noticed, well, looking backwards, I think probably the first thing I noticed was some headaches, maybe some vision changes. But really the first thing that kind of like stopped me in my tracks, like, whoa, there's something that's not right here, more than just a headache that doesn't really want to go away. And that was kind of tripping, kind of over my own feet.
Right.
And, I would walk through the clinic and I would like catch my toe.
Mhm.
It always seemed to be the right side initially. I'd catch my toe and I would say to myself, girl, what is your problem? Pick
Right.
up your feet.
Right.
And that became more and more frequent over the first, I don't know, weeks to months. I noticed it more and more.
Right.
And then, it seemed like I went from that to feeling like not like a dizzy room is spinning, but I couldn't steady myself.
Right.
And that seemed like that happened almost instantly, where I realized that as I was moving through the house or moving through my workplace or whatever, that I constantly had my hand on something.
Mhm.
I had my hand on the wall or my hand on the table.
Right.
And that was kind of the beginning
Okay.
of it, and then it progressed to other things from there.
So I guess as you noticed your imbalance, you then probably went to the doctor, and I remember, gosh, Nikki, started this horrible progression of ruling things out.
Yeah.
Like doctor's appointments after doctor appointments, MRIs, just trying to figure out what was going on. And it took, gosh, how long did that take? I mean, it was years.
Couple of years.
Years.
I
Yeah.
think of diagnostics, and I've lost count on how many MRIs of different body parts, nerve conduction studies, multiple ones of those, CT scans, PET scan, spinal tap, blood work, and biopsies, and I mean, just pretty much anything that could be tested was tested.
Yeah.
And that takes a while to go through all of that. And then, eventually, kind of the final test is what they call a tilt table test. That's kind of the final thing. And I failed that miserably. And then my official diagnosis was given based off of that and the exclusion of everything else with all of the other
Right.
diagnostics I had been through.
Right. I just remember you're constantly going to the doctor, constantly. And then in the meantime, not only were you going to the doctor, your health was also declining.
Yes.
And you went from, just kind of tripping, not, tripping, but tripping. You just kind of tripping all over the place to, then I remember one of your PT people suggested you use a cane.
Yeah.
So you got a cane.
Oh, I fought that for
I know that. I remember you fighting that, and you didn't want that, but you got a cane, and then that progressed to the rollator walker, and then went into power wheelchair, then power wheelchair, and then oxygen, and I mean all kinds of stuff. Feeding tube,
Yeah.
and just again multiple doctor appointments after doctor appointments as her health was declining, and I couldn't even imagine going through that. So what was it like emotionally and spiritually for you to be in a wheelchair, on oxygen, feeding tube, and then you also had a ventilator at night, right?
Right. Yeah. It was, wow. It was a roller coaster of emotion.
Yeah.
I went from anger to, oh, I can do this, which I don't know if was really genuine there for a while, to hopelessness, to, I don't know. I was sad.
Mm-hmm.
I felt lonely.
Right.
I felt abandoned. Even though I did have people that were around me, I still felt like I was completely alone in it. I had moments where I was putting on maybe a facade
Mm-hmm.
of, I got this, put on the happy face, keep the smile, and deep inside, there were multiple times where I just wanted to quit.
Yeah.
I just wanted it to end. It was challenging emotionally, and I let my emotions get the better of me for a lot of that, especially in the first few years of that. And spiritually, it was difficult too, because I knew what God's word said, but yet I had a hard time actually believing it for me.
Right.
Um, and I'm sure that that part of this journey we'll get to it at some point. But yeah, I mean, spiritually, initially, it was hard. I'm sure it was difficult to be around.
Yeah.
It was difficult to be around myself. I had a hard time being around myself, so I'm sure.
Well, not to mention, like, you had lost the ability to drive. You know, I know at one point you had to change the way you drove, and then at one point, then you just decided it's just not safe for me to drive, and so you were pretty much stuck at home. And was you know, you had to have everybody else's help, and you had a son at the house at the time, and then of course your husband, and that's a whole different story.
Right.
Honestly, that we can maybe delve a little bit into. But so yeah. So how did your diagnosis and physical condition affect those relationships with family and friends and
Yeah.
church and
Right.
pretty much work, everything?
Yeah. You know, there was significant impact on all of those relationships, on my work. Physically, I wasn't able to do the work that I had been doing for the last 20 years.
Right.
You know, pretty much all I had done in my adult life, I suddenly wasn't able to do that work anymore. And I had a great work family that supported me. They cared about me. They loved me, and they were willing to make accommodations for me. But that wasn't really fair to them either. And if I'm being honest, it wasn't fair to me because I don't know if I would have been able to sit back and watch others do what I know I should have been doing
Right.
and not try to keep doing it somehow. And that wasn't the best thing for me. And so, you know, I had to make a choice to change careers, to walk away from all I had ever known. But they supported me in that. Family, you know, my son spent his entire teenage years watching mom get sick and then sicker and then sicker and then sicker. And those are very important years, especially in a boy's life, you know, and he kind of had to become, you know, man of the house. And so that was challenging in our relationship, but it also turned out to be amazing in our relationship because we did grow closer in that. In my marriage at the time, it was, I think, the beginning of the end of that. Disease can be very difficult to handle, and there was not a whole lot of support there, and that was challenging.
Right.
Friendships. I mean, Alicia can probably speak to that as much as anyone can. Friendships, I mean, I had great friends that stepped in and they did things that they shouldn't have been asked to have to do, but they did it because they loved me. But I know that it was challenging for them, and it put even the closest of relationships, it put them to the test, and it kind of weeded out some of those relationships that weren't deeply rooted.
Weren't what you thought they were, huh?
Right. And so yeah, it was it had some disease, and the progression of that and my physical condition definitely impacted those relationships. Gosh, I hate to use the word negatively, but it made those things challenging.
Right.
But man, did it have the ability to strengthen some of those relationships too. And I think even in our relationship, even though it was met with some difficult times during that, where we had to get real with each other. I think that our friendship now is so much stronger than it ever was before disease. So anyway, no, I babbled on way too long about that question. So
That's all right. Well, it's a big topic because relationships are pretty much what we do in our
Right.
lives. So we'll go. Like, I'm going to circle back to your husband at the time. So I don't know. I mean, you can address this or whatever, but even prior to your sickness, I don't know how great your relationship was. But I know when you got sick, I remember you told me that he had said, "Hey, I didn't sign up for this," you know, basically. And, you know, from a friend's perspective, I saw like I ended up having to take Nikki to the hospital very often and to her appointments often. Her husband never did, especially obviously after Nikki couldn't drive. She needed somebody, and I was I was there to take her, and then she had multiple other friends who would kind of do rotations or whatever. But her husband pretty much just bowed out and said, "I didn't sign up for this." So I don't know if you want to, you know, elaborate a little bit on that and how it made you feel, or, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it was painful.
Well, yeah,
That was a painful season. In addition to the physical pain of disease,
right.
there was this emotional pain, this hurt, this man that I had been married to for I mean, I guess at the onset of symptoms, 16 or 17 years, who I guess I expected to be my support person, wasn't able to fill that role. And it was hurtful. And I don't want to get too much into, I don't want to tell his story. My side of it was, I was fighting for my life and I was fighting for my marriage. And even when things were happening in my marriage that were not the way that it should have been, I was still fighting for it. I still prayed for him. I was still believing that our marriage was going to be, that we were going to reconcile, that he was going to have this complete change of heart, and that he was going to come to know Christ, and that I was the one that was going to lead him there.
Right.
And what if I was the only one? And I carried that and finally realized I can't be that one.
Right.
And that I had to take care of me, and that it was okay for me to take care of me, that it was okay for me to say, I can't take care of everybody else right now because I have to take care of me.
Right. Right. I know that, I mean, I can't even imagine, obviously, the physical part, like that would just rock anybody's world. But then you have the emotional stuff on top of that. And then, I mean, to pile it even more on, your mom, you know, I don't know if you want to, in the middle of that, your mom, your dad, like everything just kind of.
Right. And so a little backstory, my mom, she moved in with our family when my son was 1. And so that would have been in 2003. And so for 17 years, she lived with us for pretty much my son's entire life. Nana was like a second mom. I worked full time. You know, she picked up a lot of that slack. She wasn't just mom or grandma that lived somewhere else that you saw, or, you know, talked to out every now and then, or we saw maybe on the weekend or whatever. She was intimately involved in our daily lives.
Yeah.
She was my best friend. She became a caregiver to me. She took over all the chores around the house and, you know, all of that. And then in 2020, in December of 2020, she had a massive stroke. And 2 weeks later, she passed away on Christmas Eve. after being in the neuro ICU for 2 weeks. That was difficult. It was in the middle of COVID restrictions. No one could be at the hospital with me. I was walking through all of this literally on my own. Again, kind of like reinforcing that, oh, I'm all alone. I've been abandoned, all of this. She passed away on Christmas Eve.
Right.
And then 2 months later, to the day, February 24th, my dad passed away. And so that was a really challenging season. During that same time period between when my mom passed away, actually very shortly after that, I think it was before we even had our memorial service. My husband at the time confessed that he had been unfaithful, and it had been going on for over a year. And he asked for my support. And so that eventually led to us separating and divorcing. And anyway, it was just and throughout all of that, I was continuing physically to decline and get sicker and sicker and need more and more and more help. Yet the people that were the person that I thought was going to be there, I'm suddenly not with at all.
Right. So your husband well, I guess by the time you ended up leaving, or you guys decided to separate, was 20 years, right?
21 years.
21 years of marriage. And I remember you finally decided, this is it. I've got to take care of myself and take care of, take care of my family. And so you made the difficult decision. You sold your house and you guys moved. And so where in all of this did you, most people that I know, or maybe not that I know, but a lot of people that I know of would absolutely say, I'm done. I'm done with you, God. What are you thinking, Lord? Why me? Why this disease? Why in the world did my husband did you find yourself wanting to curl up in a ball and just being done with life? I mean, and did you?
Absolutely. I wanted to and did on multiple occasions.
Right.
I was done.
Right.
I sat in the pit of why me for way too long. And as much as I hated that feeling and knew that it wasn't the right attitude to have, there was some level of comfort in that pit too.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to sit in the pit of why me. It was easier for me to say, why me, God? What did I do? Why you say all these things that you're good in all of this, but I'm not seeing any of it. I see just the opposite. That was easier.
Absolutely.
Than for me to say, you are good. And I do trust you.
Right.
Even if. And for me to put in the work to dig deeper and go deeper in relationship, that was the hard part. The easy part was to be like, oh, why me, God? I'm just going to sit in this little pit of...
Well, when you're in that kind of place, you don't really have to do anything. It's always
right
out there, it's God's fault, why, all that stuff. And you blame other people. You blame, obviously, I'm sure you weren't happy with your husband at some point. You blame people, you blame God, and you just sit back and wallow in self-pity.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
So, so what in the world, and how did you, if you were in that place, I mean, what shifted, or what, you know what I mean? What shifted for you to then, because I know obviously you were there sometimes, but you couldn't have been there all the time.
No.
For you to be where you are today. So what are some other things that during that hardship time were you doing, if that makes sense?
Right. I think that the influence of other people, even when sometimes I didn't really want to hear what they were saying, I still heard it. Having people that were strong in their faith and their standing on the promises of God, continuing to speak that truth over me and to me, even when I didn't want to hear it, even when I was like, here we go again. That's not really what I want to hear right now. What I want is for you to just come sit in the pit with me.
Right.
Right. And I'm not saying that we don't also need that. There is something to be said for someone close to you coming in and just sitting in that space with you. And even if they don't say anything, just being there, knowing that that person is there, but you can't stay there.
Mm-mm.
You got to get up out of there. And so having people in my life that would speak that truth to me and challenge me to put in the work. Like, it's great to have someone else say these things to you and pray for you and speak life over you. That's great and it's absolutely necessary. But you have to pick it up and do it for yourself.
Right. What kind of work are you talking about?
Oh,
What kind of work were you being encouraged? Were you being encouraged to do?
right.
Yes.
To dig into God's word for myself,
Oh,
not just listen to messages or worship songs or other people telling me, what the scriptures are and what God says and what the truth is and what the lies are, but me actually digging in and doing it on my own, reading it for myself, speaking it over myself.
right. Right.
And that's the hard part. It's so worth it, but that's work.
So in the middle of, I know you didn't feel good. So in the middle of feeling like crap, basically just having to be in a wheelchair, did you sleep more and all that stuff? And in the middle of all this stuff, out feeding tube, oxygen, how in the world did you find the strength and, to dig into the word? I mean, again, most people would be like, oh my gosh, like there's no way. And then they would have this excuse, well, I'm in this position, I'm in this place. There's a reason that I can't. And I'm just going to hold on to that reason. Like, you just did.
That's all I had.
Yeah.
That's all I had. I think sometimes we talk about, people have to hit rock bottom. And a lot of times that's in reference to maybe someone who suffers from addiction, or is just leading a completely sin-filled life from whatever.
Right.
And that, they have to hit rock bottom before they decide to make a change for themselves, because nobody else can make the change for you, right? You have to make it on yourself. And I think that's kind of what happened with me, like in my spiritual.
Right.
Now, yes, I was a believer before. Yes, I read my Bible. I was involved with ministry. I did Bible studies. I was on a worship team. Like, I did all of those things. But I don't know how much of a priority I made my spiritual walk.
Right.
And when I was then in a position where I really couldn't do anything else, I hit rock bottom.
Right.
And the only thing that I had was Jesus.
Right.
And suddenly I had all this time. And it was kind of forced. It was forced on me because I didn't have the excuse of, I have to go do this. I have to go do, whatever. I just said, well, I have to just sit here in this chair because I don't really have anything else that I can do.
Right.
Okay. So, I don't know. I think, did I answer your question?
Yeah. And even then, like at that point, you had left your other job. And I know, like, by God's great design, had given you a job where you could work from home. Like, originally it wasn't, but then it wasn't. Well, COVID, and then COVID, right? And then so then you could do your job from home, and I know it didn't consume all 40 hours a week or whatever. So Nikki was like, she moved into all this stuff. She was working full time, and still in the wheelchair. I mean, feeling like crap all the time, but she still held down this full-time job. She just, in the middle of all of this, even though I know there were most days felt like garbage, like literally I can tell, there were certain days I could tell, well, she feels better today, or other days she feels like garbage, but um, she would still go to work. She would still do the things, like, because as soon as you give up, as soon as you throw in the towel, as soon as you say, you know what, I'm done, then you're done. Like literally, like, yes, you can come back to it or whatever, but you cannot give up. And that's something that Nikki absolutely embodied in the middle of this whole journey, if you will, struggle, journey, clawing, whatever you might call it, time. She continued to put one foot in front of the other. She continued to move forward. She continued to work. She continued to read her word. She continued to listen to podcasts. She continued to encourage her faith. She continued to go to church. Not only that, she continued, even though she couldn't stand, to get a stool and get her bass guitar and sit in a stool while we led worship together at church every Sunday. Like, she didn't say, I'm just too sick today, I'm not going to come to church. I mean, you have people who stay at home for headaches, right? Oh, I've just got a headache, I'm not going to church. Nikki had this disease, couldn't walk, all this stuff, and then she still made it a priority to get her butt to go and do this thing and to serve God. Pretty phenomenal. It's pretty phenomenal during all that time. Again, constantly declining. For a while she'd plateau, and then all of a sudden, boom, like some big neurological deficit. Something would happen, and then something major would change, and she had a quote unquote new normal. And of course, through it all, I don't know what you believe, but I didn't believe that that was your new normal. We didn't accept that.
Right.
Normal is sickness isn't normal. It is not a normal that we embrace, right? It's against God. And so I don't know if you have anything to say to any of that. Just that you continued to put one foot in. I mean, it was pretty phenomenal. So everybody around you, and I'm sure to you as well.
Right. Well, I had to have something to keep me out of that place of I quit.
Right.
And for me, that I needed, honestly, I think I needed a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to have a purpose because I felt like I didn't have a purpose anymore. I felt like my life as a wife stripped away. My ability to be an active mom stripped away.
Right.
My ability to be a great employee that went above and beyond, like I always did and wanted to, stripped away.
Right.
I even felt like my ability to be a good friend had been stripped away because I wanted to serve people. Like, I have a heart for serving and giving and doing, and I wasn't able to do that anymore. And I couldn't see a way that I could do that from the place I was in. So I needed a purpose. I needed a purpose and a reason to live and to fight to live.
Right. How many years then, before, like how many years you started, I don't know, how, like all the stuff we've been talking about, over how many years was this journey? It started in 2016. And then, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
As I was going to say, we haven't even gotten to the good part yet, obviously, and everything changed in 2023.
Correct.
Right? September 2023. So, for me, as I watched Nikki, go through this journey, I could tell she was struggling with faith. Like, I knew one day, it's one thing to talk it, like, it here, I know that I'm healed. I know that the Bible says I'm healed, and you know it, like, that that's the truth,
right.
But to actually believe it is a whole different story. Because I know a lot of people know it here. Oh, God can do this. And yes, I see that it's in his word. But to really embody that health, that healing, and I could tell from a friend's perspective, at one point, all of a sudden, like you went from, yeah, I know that I'm healed to I'm healed and it's happening and whatever. So I don't know if there's any kind of, was there a moment that happened, or did it just kind of morph over time, or one of those things where you build, and then it's like suddenly actually happens after all these years. I don't know. Can you describe that for us?
I've been asked that question a lot, and I wish I could say, oh, I did this, and that's what caused the change, but that's not the truth. That's not the case.
Right.
Now, was there a light just switched on that I felt different? Absolutely.
Right.
What triggered that switch to be
Turned
flipped?
on?
I don't know. I think that was just being consistent
Mm-hmm.
in doing the hard in the middle of the hard.
Okay, so you went through all of this stuff, right? And this was, we said, from 2016 to basically 2023.
Mm-hmm.
You had all the declining, the health issues, obviously, the marriage issues, both of your parents passing away, all kinds of things going on during this time. And you obviously were building your faith and everything. We talked about that a little bit. But I could tell as a friend that a lot of it was here. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I know you wanted to believe,
Right.
and you tried, like you were doing everything for lack of a better way of putting it, your power to believe, right? You were doing everything in your power to believe, but then you just didn't, it's like you knew it, but you didn't know it, right?
Right.
And so, and I think that's a huge struggle for a lot of people, is like we know it, but we don't know it to the point where we actually live as if we know it. And so, I mean, I know there were days you come and smile like, yeah, it's a great day. And you could tell it's fake. But I mean, you were doing it in faith regardless, right? Yeah. Even if your faith wasn't like embodied, so to speak. Okay. So we're getting, so your faith from here to here, that's a huge thing that I think, like I said, a lot of people really, really struggle with. And you said you've been asked this before, but when I mean, I could physically see it. Like, I remember one day to the next, Nikki was like, you could tell she was struggling to believe it. And then the next day, all of a sudden, she said, I'm healed. I mean, you actually went out and bought a car and knowing that you were healed. Like, and I was like, wow, though, that's actually faith, right? It's not just, I'm hoping, and it's possible. It's like, I'm buying a car for when I'm walking again, because I know it's coming. So was there a moment like that something shifted in you? Or I know you'd been listening to some stuff, like did some of that kind of sink in? I mean,
Yeah.
So
there was a moment where it felt like maybe the switch of receiving faith got flipped on. But I don't know what prompted that, right? But I definitely felt it.
Mm-hmm.
It was like all of a sudden I went from just believing all of these things and believing that they were true for other people, and they might be true for me, to knowing without a doubt that absolutely it's true for me. Like, why wouldn't it be true for me if it's true for somebody else, right? And so that moment of going from believing to receiving, game changer.
Yeah.
Game changer. Now, I don't know what caused it for me to feel that way, like instantaneous, but it was a constant work that I put in.
Yeah.
It was doing the hard things in the middle of the hardest time of my life.
Right.
And it was consistently doing it, making it a priority, persevering through, just continuing to listen to the truth, to speak the truth, to picture my life
Right.
the way that I knew that it was going to be,
Right.
to see myself in a healed body, even when what I was experiencing in the natural was very far from that. But I had to learn
Right.
to see myself differently. And that took work, and I had to put that work in.
Right.
And over time, I think that this, I don't know, it's like this, my character was being developed, right? There was this endurance, because of the perseverance.
Testing of your faith.
Yes.
Perseverance.
Yes.
Right. Right.
And then all of a sudden, boom.
Right.
Yes, I received this,
Yes.
know?
It's like a light bulb went off.
And from that point on, any talk that was contrary to that needed to leave my presence.
Right.
Now, there were people that weren't in the same place that I was in as far as what I was believing, right? And that was okay. They're still on their journey,
Right.
right? Just like I was on that journey. And that was fine. But if they were going to be in my presence, then we were going to speak life,
Right.
and speak faith and speak truth, or we were just going to talk about, like, the weather, or, oh, how are those Canes doing?
Right. Right. Because you don't need people negating what God's done. Like, you've got this revelation that God's given you, this true, and you don't need people out there saying, oh, what are you talking about? It's if it's God's will, he's going to heal you. If it's, maybe he will, we don't know. Like, that's why a lot of people, we don't see a lot of healings in our world, is because we just don't believe it. We're like, well, if it's God's will, is it possible? I don't know. And then, so Nikki, I saw, we fight the fight of faith. And she was literally, for all these years, fighting the fight of faith. Right. And it was not easy. It's not easy. And all of us in this culture, in our United States culture, we want things to be easy. God, why didn't you do this already? And I heard somebody say recently that faith, and I love this, faith isn't, like, the measure of faith isn't how big is your faith, it's how long. How long is your faith? Are you going to continue to believe day after day after day after day after day? It's not like, oh, my faith is so big and I can do. It's like, do you actually believe? Because if you did believe, then you're going to continue to believe, like, because it's already happened, and then you just see it in the natural.
Yes.
Is the thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you got to. Like, you're like, finally, this is it. Like, and I know it's happening. You brought the car. I mean, her complete, everything changed. Speech, even in the Bible, like, there are different instances where, like, Jesus, he put certain people came with him, certain disciples came with him, because I believe it's because they understood what he was going to do. Like, the other disciples didn't really have it maybe yet to understand. Does that make sense? So he kind of shut the door. Even like when, I think it was Elijah or Elisha go up, he shut the door when he was healing that boy, because you don't want to keep people who don't believe coming in and distracting and trying to question, right? And so I think it's very important that you said, I'm not allowing that kind of talk anymore. And that's what you have to do, even if it requires, I mean, if you've had to lose friends over it or lose whatever, you've got to hold on to God so tight.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. And here's the other thing, and this was probably even more challenging than not hearing that talk, or not allowing that talk to be in my presence from someone else. And that was not allowing myself to talk that way.
Absolutely.
And I there were times that was a struggle. Even when I had kind of flipped to the, oh yes, I received this, there were still moments where I would find myself thinking certain things, and that went against
right
what I knew to be true. And so I would have to correct myself and say, no, we're not thinking that way. That is not the truth. And so learning to identify that quickly and then flipping it quickly was something that I think for years that I had been learning how to do that. Right. But even at a time where I felt like I was like the most, confident in believing what I knew to be true and what was going to happen, what we were going to see happen. Even in the middle of that, there were still times where I was like,
but what if it does?
And then, no.
Yeah.
I would have to like yell at myself,
You do, right? I mean, that's absolutely what you've got to, because it's like you're living in this dichotomy, right? Your spiritual self and the flesh, and you're like, no, you've got to take it captive and throw it out, toss it out. And you cannot live in that other reality, so to speak.
Right.
So, wow. I mean, let's get to it's all good, but let's get to the really good part here where, tell us what happened. Like, it was September 9th. I was there. My family was there. And it was an amazing experience. So can you walk us through what happened that day, like when the healing took place?
Well, yes. But I will say that the really good part is that through this, we get to share how amazing God is.
Right.
That's the really good part. I mean, yes, what happened that September 9th, 2023 was amazing, right? But the really good part for me is that I get to keep telling about God's goodness over and over and over. And I'm a living, breathing, walking example of that. So, so I don't want somebody to miss the point of us talking about this.
Right.
And the point is that, oh, wow, that's so cool that happened to her. Yes, it was cool it happened to me, and I'm so thankful. The point is, God is faithful, and His word is true, and His promises are true, and they're true for you.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So, so we, for some time, we had been, when I say we, Alicia and I, and some others, close friends, family had been believing for the same things, right? That we were going to see God move, that we knew that I had been healed. We were going to see the evidence of that in this body. And that was what we were focused on. And that's what we were speaking over and over and over. And we had talked about making a trip to a healing room. And, there's a lot that goes into traveling with me at that time.
Right.
There was a lot of logistics and a lot of stuff. And it just didn't seem to work out for us to make that trip. However, this particular healing ministry offered to call and pray with me over the phone, which was amazing, right? So we took that opportunity to schedule this prayer service, we'll call it, at my house on Saturday, September 9th. And we arranged to get a call from this healing ministry. They, said basically be available between 10 and 12. We'll call at some point during that time. And we're like, great. So we had a small group of people, like-minded believers. Alicia and her husband, 3 of your 4 kids were physically in the room. The other one was on FaceTime.
Right.
My son, his girlfriend at the time was there. And then a close friend of mine from my work family was there. And everyone that was there knew why we were coming. And they were believing for the same thing, even the kids, which is pretty awesome.
Right.
And I don't think that that's by chance that over half the people in that room were youth. So we gathered for a time of prayer. We did some soaking prayer. We did some, I think maybe even like some kind of popcorn kind of prayer, and just kind of sat in the presence of God. We worshiped some. Alicia led some, a few songs, worship songs, and what I remember about that morning is I was so excited for that morning. Well, let me back up. Can I talk about the night before?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So the night before that Friday night, now we had been believing that we were going to see physical healing manifest in this body on this earth, right? But I also could feel the changes that were happening in my body. Like I knew, like, I mean, I didn't just say, oh, well, this isn't happening. Like, oh, I can just ignore this, right? I knew. Right. I mean, my blood pressure was in the gutter. Like, I was struggling to breathe. I was getting worse. And one part that you talked about, the feeding tube and the oxygen and the ventilator and the wheelchair and all that. One part that you did leave out was the fact that I was on hospice for over a year.
Right. Right.
I was on hospice care, right? I had a nurse visit multiple times a week. And so that team kind of starts to prepare you for the end.
Right.
Right. And I had started saying my goodbyes because there were things that I wanted to say to the people that I was closest to, the people that I loved. I wanted to be able to say certain things to them while I could on my terms, right? That didn't mean I wasn't still believing that I was going to be healed.
Right.
Okay. And so that night before, that Friday night, Alicia took me out for an early birthday celebration for my birthday, which was in October. And I'm sure that the timing was that this show, this musical that we went to see was playing in this time frame. But I think some of it was probably also, I don't know if she's still going to be around on her birthday. And so we went out that night and had an amazing night together. And I was very appreciative that she let me say the things that I needed to say and didn't stop me. And, if anyone that knows Alicia well knows that there's certain talk that is not, there's a line of conversation that she doesn't like to have. And that's because she chooses to speak the truth, God's truth. We're going to talk this way. We're going to have our mindset, our thought pattern is going to be this way, right? Mm-hmm. We're not going to sit in all of these other talks. We're not going to sit in the place of, oh, every time we get together, we talk about, oh, how bad things are. Yeah. Things are getting worse. And, oh, yeah, I might die soon or whatever. Okay. Like, I feel like I need to say goodbye to you. Like prior to that night, that would kind of been shut down, and shut down in a loving way, because I didn't need to be saying those things over myself either, right? Yeah. But that night, I think we kind of said our goodbyes to each other in our own way, but we didn't dwell on it, and we just enjoyed each other's company. But we knew that next morning we were going to see God move in an amazing way, right? We held on to that. So that morning, she and her family came in. Her daughter, who was 9 at the time, came in. She had drawn a picture. Miss Nikki, I drew you a picture. And it was the perfect encouragement that I needed in that moment. Because she drew a picture of me and said, Nikki is healed, and put the date on it. I needed that encouragement that morning, right? And so we had this amazing time of prayer and worship, and I don't know, probably an hour and a half or so into that, I think you started to lead a song. And of course, now my I feel like some of the stuff is a little fuzzy for me. But I think you started to lead a song and then said, you lead it, and kind of handed the guitar over to me, which at that point in my physical decline, it was difficult for me to play guitar, especially acoustic guitar. And, I had so little breath. But I took the guitar and I remember strumming the first chord, or an attempt at a chord, of 1,000 Hallelujahs. And I think I got the first chord in and the phone rang.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it was two ladies calling from the healing ministry. And they introduced themselves very quick, asked me for a quick introduction, and then said, what do you believe God's going to do today?
Right.
And I think my answer was, well, I believe that my physical body is going to be completely healed and restored, and I'm going to walk up my front steps and I'm going to drive a car.
Right.
And I think the response was, wow, that's a big ask. And I went, well, I got a big God.
Right.
And they started praying, and the time frame at that point for me is completely gone. I don't know how long they were praying before the next thing happened. I do remember your youngest daughter, who was sitting on the other side of the room, and she was drawing in her notebook and stuff. And she wasn't like intimately involved in what we were doing, really. She was kind of doing 9-year-old things, And it was like she just closed her notebook. She got up, she walked over. Alicia was sitting next to me. She walked over, she sat down in between us. And it was very almost intentional. I don't, again, some of mine is a little fuzzy. She sat down, she reached down, and she touched my ankle. And I don't know at what point, I don't know how long the lady's been praying. I don't know what happened at that point. All I know is that she touched me, and it felt like this surge of electricity.
Wow.
Came up the bottom, like up through the bottom of my foot.
Wow. Yeah.
And out the top of my head. And I don't remember anything after that. I remember kind of coming to, and I was on my hands and knees on the bathroom floor. Not a position that I should have been in. Now, we started in the living room.
Right.
I was in the chair in the living room. I came to, I was on my hands and knees on the bathroom floor. And I remember kind of like looking around like this and thinking, I think I'm alive. But I really couldn't feel any part of my body. I couldn't get words out. And I looked around, I looked up, and Alicia was standing in the doorway of the bathroom. She had my phone in her hand. The ladies, I think, were still praying.
We're still praying.
It was on speakerphone. The ladies are still praying, and I'm kind of like trying to figure out like what is happening here? Why am I here? And I looked up at you, and what I remember is when I looked up at you, you kind of had this smile on your face. Obviously, she knew what had just happened. I didn't know yet.
Wow.
And then you kind of took a step towards me, like,
Yeah, I did too.
like to help me
To
up.
help you up, because
Like
you
that had been our life,
could never get up. Yeah.
right? That had been our life for years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I remember just kind of shaking my head like, no, or whatever. And you kind of took a step back, and I stood straight up off that floor. Like, nobody helped me. I didn't hold on to anything. I stood, and as I was standing up, I remember thinking to myself, how is this happening?
Right.
And, I kind of locked eyes with Alicia again, and she had this huge smile on her face. And in like true Alicia fashion, very like matter of fact, she was like, well, you want to walk out of the bathroom? And I think the first words I said was, I guess so. I don't, and
No.
I walked out of that bathroom, walked
Yeah.
out of the bathroom, around the corner, back into the living room. And I look around this room and all these faces, and everybody's like,
Yeah.
and Chris, I remember he was standing over on the other side of the room in front of the fireplace. And what I remember is like this, it was almost like he had ants in his pants or something. It was like he was like, like not really sure what to do, and he's like, and then he just grabs my guitar and hands it to me and says, we need to worship. And so I then finished playing 1,000 Hallelujahs, but I stood.
Right.
And I played. And if I remember correctly, my guitar didn't have a strap on it because I hadn't been able to stand and play forever. So I didn't need a strap on the guitar, right? And so he hands me the guitar with no strap, but I'm standing. Well, if you ever tried playing a guitar without a strap on it while you're standing, like you can't really.
Right.
And so I put my foot
Put your foot
up into the seat of the couch and propped the guitar on my knee and stood on one leg.
Right.
I came out of that bathroom and my hands and my fingers were completely straight.
Right.
And they weren't before I went in there.
Yeah.
My feet were completely straight, and you couldn't physically straighten my feet out before.
Right.
So anyway, I had to ask them like kind of what took place during that. So
Yeah.
I think you're a better one to fill in that part. I don't know if you want to go into all that, but
No, she when they were praying, she started to feel sick, and then ended up hopping up. Like I was gonna go grab her bowl or something, but she's like, "No, I don't have time for that." So she hops up and runs to the bathroom, and right, like she runs to the bathroom, and then the people were still on the phone, and I was kind of like, "Oh yeah," trying to give them a play-by-play, and so ends up. Long story short, we finished praying, and what she just described all happened, and then so she gets up and leads the song 1,000 Hallelujahs, and like everybody's still kind of like, whoa, like wow, we didn't really know what to do, so we just decided to go get Mexican.
right. I mean, that's what you do after you're miraculously healed, right? You go.
So Nikki not only, her front steps were like super steep, they weren't just a couple. There was like what 10, 15 steps or whatever, brick steps. Quite a few. Well,
maybe 6 or 7.
Whatever. It was a lot to me. But so she walks down these steps. I mean, somebody that couldn't walk.
Yeah, I walked
in the past
down the steps, and I went to get in the car. I remember my son saying something about driving.
Yeah,
and I said, I'm driving, and I think everybody around was like, you are?
Yeah, I mean, like she hops in her new car that she had bought by faith, and drives to the Mexican restaurant. We get there, and we're like acting like almost like it's a normal day.
Right.
I mean,
like I walked into the restaurant, and everybody's still there. So let's talk about the flip-flops.
Oh, yes, flip-flops.
Yeah, so I'm a flip-flop wearer. I love flip-flops. I wear flip-flops, even in the times of the year that flip-flops probably aren't appropriate because I like flip-flops.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a lot of them, but I only wore a few because I didn't want to mess up the really nice ones. But anyway, so I had all these flip-flops that back when I still could walk some, I couldn't wear anymore because my feet drug so bad.
Right.
I couldn't wear the flip-flops, right? And so many times I almost just got rid of all of them.
Well, the tops of her shoes would have holes in them from where her foot would drag. So it was,
And so a very good friend encouraged me not to get rid of the flip-flops, and not to pack them up, to leave them out as my reminder of what was coming.
Right.
Right. And so I left those flip-flops out. I then sold my house, packed the flip-flops up, moved them to the new house, unpacked them. And at this point, I was in a wheelchair, unpacked them, put them in the closet, and left them out in the closet so that every time I went into that closet, I would see those flip-flops, and it was my reminder of what was to come.
Right. Right.
And so that morning, after I was miraculously healed, and we decided we were going to go have lunch, I walked down my hallway to my bedroom, into the bathroom, into the closet, and I opened that closet door, and the first thing I saw were those flip-flops on the floor right there, like they were waiting for me to just stick my feet right in them.
Yep.
And I said, yep, thank you, Lord. And I put on a pair of flip-flops, and I came back down the hallway. Alicia's sitting at the end in the living room, right at the end of the hallway. It sees me coming, and she says, you have got on flip-flops.
Yep. That's awesome.
And so I walked down the front steps in the flip-flops and drove the car in the flip-flops, and have pretty much worn flip-flops just about every day since.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
But that's just talking about, like the things that we do in faith, right? Like I kept those flip-flops in faith. I bought the car because, well, my job, so many times my doctor said, you need to be on disability. Like, you need to quit work. And I said, well, I had the option of continue to work from home. They support me. My work family is amazing. They're very supportive. They're very accommodating. And so the doctors agreed, well, as long as you can do it and it's, not causing further trauma or whatever the word they use was, then we will support that. But I said, I can't give that up. First of all, I need a purpose and I need something to do. But when I'm healed, this is the job that I want.
Right.
And when I'm healed, I'm going to have a job.
Mm-hmm.
And if I give this job up, I'm not going to get it back. So I am going to keep it. And I did. And so a month before I was healed, I said to my son, when I'm healed and I'm ready to drive back to my office in downtown Raleigh, I'm not driving that wheelchair accessible van. I'm going to need a car to drive. So I'm going to find some online and I'm going to send you, I'm going to have you drive it and see what you think. And then I'm going to buy it.
Right.
And of course I got the typical, okay, Mom. And that's exactly what I did. I bought a car and a month later, I drove that car.
Yeah. Right. So faith is not passive. Faith is action. Faith is doing, like we said before, the head to the heart, to the mind, to the actually knowing it. You can know it here. And, that's what so many people get caught in the listening and studying and they don't actually do. You know what I mean? Like maybe God's called you to do something. Maybe God's called you to believe for somebody, for your healing, for whatever. I mean, he obviously has, because everybody, I believe, is supposed to be. But anyway, that's not the side note. But we've got to put actions behind our faith. Faith isn't really faith if we're not stepping out and doing the thing that God has called us to do. Like, so she believed, so she can say all day long, oh yeah, I know I'm healed, I know I'm healed. But what in the action, is showing that? Like, how do you know that we know? You know what I mean? So she bought, for her, that wasn't just proved to everybody else. It was just in faith. She bought this car and she knew it. And lo and behold, drive that car. So we probably should wrap this up. But what kind of things did your doctors say? Gosh, I mean, I can't imagine. Or family and friends. Or, I mean, I remember driving to now your mother-in-law's house, and maybe you can wrap that up in a bow too. Like, what happened after you were healed? I mean, it didn't even just stop with that.
Right.
Like, just kept getting better and better.
Right.
So,
yeah. I mean, after we had lunch, Alicia and I rode around. We had some errands that we needed to do we were leading worship in the prison. So we've been doing prison ministry together for years.
Mm-hmm.
And we were leading worship the very next day, that Sunday, at the prison. So we had to go pick up sound equipment and stuff. And she's like, well, you want to go with me? I'm like, yeah, I'll drive. She's like, maybe I'll drive. You can just ride along. And then as we're doing that, she's like, I feel like we just need to go visit some people and like tell them. And we did. We called a couple people at home, and a couple people weren't. But anyway, so a very close friend of ours that was our next door neighbor for 20 years that we lived in that house. We were next door neighbors. He was, a great friend. Always there to kind of help out, especially when I got sick and before my mom passed away. She would call him if she needed kind of some help with stuff. And then after she passed away, he really stepped in and was helpful for stuff like that. After my husband at the time and I separated and divorced, and we moved, my son and I moved together somewhere else. And this friend continued to, check on us. He was a part of our church family. He continued to check on us. He continued to kind of pour into my son's life and make sure that I didn't need anything. He would sometimes come pick me up and just get me out of the house, or he would bring me groceries, or he'd bring, just a really good friend. And I don't know, I think our friendship kind of developed into something more than that. And, we kind of started dating, which is, when you're 50 years old, the word dating is kind of weird to use, but I guess, we knew that we wanted to be with each other for the rest of our lives. And so New Year's Day, we got married.
So you got healed in September. You started dating shortly after.
Yeah.
And then at the beginning of the year, I mean, like a couple months later.
Yeah, a few months later, got
you don't know somebody after 20 years of living next
exactly.
door. I guess.
Yeah.
You're not going.
Anyway, what was the other part that I was wrapping up into a bow?
Well, mainly that, I guess, and just
sorry, I kind of got sidetracked and forgot what the initial question was.
Oh, it was just just everything. Like, yes, you literally had one life. And then you got healed, and then like not only was your body restored, you now have a new family, new life. I mean, literally, everything. Right. It wasn't just your physical healing. It was.
Yeah.
Now keep in mind too, Nikki was on was it morphine? Like these, what are they?
Well, initially I was on oral morphine, and then I was on a constant infusion of morphine, and then that was swapped out to Dilaudid.
Right. So I mean,
and that had been
she was on a year and a half, like a drip for
like a constant infusion.
Right. The constant pain, infusion, whatever you call those things. And so not only that, like she had to also get off of. Right. Those types of pain medicine. I mean, it was just the whole
oxygen gone, feeding tube gone, and then I had to wean off of the Dilaudid, and that took place for about a 6 week period. They did a step down on the dose every 2 weeks.
Crazy.
And every 2 weeks I went through withdrawals, and I have a new appreciation for people who go through
I can imagine
opioid withdrawals and who have opioid addiction, because it was intense. And I mean mine was probably nothing compared to some people, but it was challenging. So but that next day, I mentioned we were going to supposedly worship in the prison that very next day, right? And we did. And we had been doing prison ministry for years, and as we were walking across those grounds over to the chapel, it occurred to us that was the first time that I had walked across those prison grounds unassisted.
Yep.
And we walked over to the chapel. There's like 3 or 4 steps up onto the stage in the center. I walked up the steps. I was helping to set up sound equipment, which for several years I hadn't really been able to help do any of that stuff. Even I went and helped and participated in leading worship and everything, but I couldn't really help do anything. And then the ladies, the residents of the prison that had watched my progression over all those years, they come walking in for that Sunday service, and they saw me standing up there.
Right.
And it was such a celebration. Like, they were cheering and celebrating and high-fiving each other and hugging each other and crying all at the same time. It's like they walked that journey with me.
Yeah.
It was just,
Yeah.
it was really amazing.
Overwhelming.
So now I have this new marriage, this new relationship, this new new life. And I mentioned at the beginning doing things that I've never done before and never thought that I maybe would ever do, like riding motorcycles,
Right.
and driving a tractor and working out on the property, you know, like things like that are just, you know, appreciating the blueness of the sky, appreciating breath.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's so many other parts of this story that we didn't even touch on, like my voice,
Right. Right.
that was miraculously restored, not at the end, not in September, but previous to that, like this little nugget.
Nugget of God's faithfulness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's you know, and the opportunities that I have now to do exactly what I said was the really great part of this, and that is to continue sharing this.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Right.
it's just, and that afterwards I was so overwhelmed with gratitude that sometimes I didn't even know what to do with it, right? And I said, Lord, I don't know what you have in store for me, but open the door, give me the platform, and I'm going to share your story,
Right.
your goodness. And
Right.
he has done that over and over and over.
Right. So, what would you say to the person who, well, that's good for you, Nikki, but I've got this disease. I've had it for, 20 years, and I can't get rid of it. Like, there's no way. It's not for me. I mean, what would you say? Yeah?
I would say, God says,
Right.
you know, and then you dig into what God says, right? And if you've been doing that for 20 years, then keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Keep doing the hard.
Right.
Keep picturing yourself in the way that you believe it's going to be, right?
Right.
For me, when I needed help moving from one place to another, right? I had to get to the point where I allowed that help without bitterness, which took a little bit, but I was grateful for it. And I allowed that person to move me. But while they were moving me, I pictured me moving me. And I started doing that with everything. So I would say, keep pressing in.
Right.
Keep going deeper with your relationship with Jesus.
Right.
Keep seeking more and more and more. Keep surrounding yourself with truth.
Truth.
Keep making that your everything, right?
Mm.
Make Jesus your everything. Speak his name over everything. Jesus changes everything.
Right.
And hold on to that. And in those moments where you feel like you're losing hope or your faith is down, okay, recognize it and then say, but God is good. But God.
Right.
Right? And if you got to but God yourself for another 20 years, and you just keep on but Godding, because he is faithful.
Right.
He's faithful.
Right.
Even in the hard, even in those times that are really, really challenging. And even in those moments where you think, how is there any good in any of this?
Yeah.
God is going to use every bit of that. And here's the other important thing. He didn't cause any of it.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't cause your sickness. But he's going to use every part of it for his glory.
Mm-hmm.
If you let him.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I have an idea. I think we need to do a follow-up and get more into the nuts and bolts of the faith and some of the different discussions, that I'm sure this type of podcast or video, whatever you want to call it, will spawn, because there's so much depth to this. It's not just, oh, I prayed and God healed me. Like it was, there's so much depth. And I think we can get into a lot of the discussions some other time. I'll bring some questions and we can really kind of go deeper with some of that.
Yeah.
So please join us again in the future soon, probably next week, hopefully, to just kind of go through some of these questions. And if you have any questions on this video, feel free to write them down, send them in. Also, you're always welcome to visit my320life.com and just however you can connect with us and reach out to us and, however you want, because we're here to bless you. We're here to be a blessing. And is there anything else before we wrap up that you want to say concerning your amazing transformation story?
God is good.
Mm-hmm.
And keep speaking the goodness of God.
Right.
Keep declaring it.
Right.
Over and over, over and over and over. And don't be blind to the blessings.
Right.
Right. And I think the final thing is God wants you to live a life of abundance.
Right. Absolutely.
Beyond your wildest imagination. Right?
That's right.
So go live it.
Mm-hmm. You can.
You can.
You can.
You absolutely can. And you can live it even along the journey.
That's right. Just not like you're getting to the 320 life. You have the 320 life.
Yeah.
Right. Which is exceedingly abundantly above all we can ask or imagine. Yeah. So hope you have an amazing day, and we'll see you again next time.